Hello everybody, myself Dr. Shivkumar Biswarapur, Associate Professor and Research Guide, Department of Education, Karnataka State Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijaypura, and my YouTube channel, Dr. Shivkumar Biswarapur. Please keep in mind the YouTube channel title is Dr. Shivkumar Biswarapur itself. Today we shall discuss about education in medieval period. It is also nomenclature as education in Islamic period or Muslim period. So usually the sophisticated word is used as education in medieval period. During the 8th century, Anno Domini, a huge number of Mohammedan invaded India. Mahmud Ghazni captured India and set up a large number of schools and libraries in the country by the looted wealth. Later, Muslim leaders established their permanent empire in India. They brought a new system of education. Islamic pattern of education which was different from the Buddhist and Brahminic education system. The medieval age education system primarily focused on the Islamic and Mughal system. So here Brahminic education system is Vedic period. Now let us see what are the aims of education. The main objective of education during the medieval period was the spread of knowledge and the propagation of Islam. The objective behind this era of education was to spread Islamic education, its principles and social conventions. The purpose of education system was to make people religious minded is the main important. That's what the aim of education is. Education was the purpose of the education system was to make people religious minded. The other aims are developing love for Muslim culture and religion. Number two, enabling the individual for Islamic life. Number three, preparing the students for the next world. Fourth one, equipping the students for a vocation. Number five, preparing individuals for running administration. Now, special features of the system. The rulers helped in the spread and development of education. They helped in the establishment of different educational institutes and funded it. Big landlords also gave them some wealth in the development of institutes. There was no control of rulers over the educational institutes and also to their management. The student teacher relation was also good, like the Buddhist and Brahminic period, although students did not live with their teachers at that time. Teachers took interest in learning. At the time, teachers were used to teaching students individually. The chief features are patronage of the rulers. The rulers helped in the spread of education. They built educational institutions and universities. Big landlord also provided financial help for the spread of education. No state control. The rulers neither claim any authority over the educational institutions nor interfere with their management. Number three, religion dominated education. The peoples acquired knowledge as a religious obligation. Next point, individualized instructions. Since the number of students with the teacher was limited, he paid individual attention to each student. Next point, types of institutions. Primary education was imparted in Maktabs and secondary and higher education in Madrasahs. Initial ceremony, which is also called as Bismillah. The initiation ceremony at Maktabs is called as Bismillah, was performed to indicate the beginning of the child. This was considered as an auspicious moment for initiation or starting education. Good wishes were offered to the child. Surah Iqra, a chapter from the Holy Quran, was recited on this occasion. Centers of learning, Maktabs or Madrasahs. Maktab is an Arabic word means elementary schools. A maktab was often attached to a mosque. Next point. Primary education was imparted through the maktab, which were attached with the mosque or were independent of the mosque. Concourse of the saints also at some places served as centers of education. Next point, almost every village had at least one maktab. There were several maktabs in town and cities. Next point, maktabs were run under the guidance of the learned Maulvis. They were supposed to be very pious. Next point, in general, the students sat on the ground in the rows under the shade of a tree, and the teacher used mat or deer skin to sit at. He also attended to the students while standing. Next point. The age of the admission to the maktabs is 4 years, 4 months and 4 days. Keep in mind 4 years, 4 months and 4 days. Next point. In the maktabs, children were made to remember the tenets of Quran. Next point. The stories of prophets and Muslim fakirs were also told to the children. I repeat, the stories of prophets and Muslim fakirs were also told to the children. Next point, the children were also imparted the knowledge of art of writing and conversation. Madrasah. Let us see the madrasa, where the center of learning is there. Madrasa literally means a place where learning and studying are done. The term madrasa is derived from Arabic word dars, means a lecture, and means a place where lecture is given. The Arabic meaning the word madrasa simply means the same as school does in the English language. Whether that is private, public or parochial school, as well as for any primary or secondary school, whether Muslim, non-Muslim or secular. Next point, the children were sent to madrasa after completing the primary education. There were separate teachers for different subjects. The religious education included the study of Quran, Muhammad and his conventions, Islamic laws and Islamic history, etc. The madrasas imparted secondary and higher education. There was provision for both secular and religious education. I repeat, there was provision for both secular and religious education in the madrasas. The total duration of the course was 10 to 12 years. Next point, many cities played a prominent part in imparting higher education through the Muslim period in India. They are number one, Delhi, Madrasah, and Nasiriya. Number two, Agra, important center of Muslim education made by Sikandar Lodi. Number three, Jaunpur, Sher Shah Suri received his education in one of the schools of Jaunpur city. Next, Bidar, Muhammad Gawan had established many maktabs and a big madrasa over here. Next point, Azmir. Muhammad Gori is reported to have established several madrasas. Teacher-pupil relationship. In the Muslim period, the teacher was respected as during Brahminic or Buddhist period. Next point, the practice of living with the teacher was not as common with the Muslim as it was in the case of Brahminic and Buddhist period. Next point, the teacher is considered as a guide, which is also called as murshid, and the student as seeker, talib. Please note the murshid and talib. The two words, the nomenclatures are very important here. Next point, the relationship between the two is to be governed by certain Quranic principles. The holy Quranic principles. Next point, the teacher has to interact with his students in the way their biological fathers treat them. Next point, pupils were humble, submissive, and obedient, owing to the high honor and prestige of teachers in the society. Now coming to the curriculum and approaches methods. Number one, there were no printed books. Instead of these wooden books, taktis were used. I repeat, there were no printed books. Instead of these wooden books, that is taktis, were used. Please underline taktis. I'm sorry if I'm wrong in pronunciation. Number two, after alphabets, words were taught to students. Number three, beautiful and fine handwriting was an important element of instruction. Number four, grammar was taught as it was considered very valuable in teaching the languages. Number five, instruction imparted in the Maktabs was religious. Number six, after the Holy Quran reading, the books like Gulistan and the Bostan, poems of poet Firdusi, were taken up. Number seven, Paharas. Students also learner Paharas means multiple of numbers. Students memorized these while uttering collective in a loud voice. Now coming to the status of men education during medieval period. Number one, education for girls was the exception rather than the rule. Muslim girls of affluent families studied at home Quranic exegesis, Islamic law, Sharia. Second one, often attached to mosque, Islamic schools were open to the poor but were gender segregated, often only for boys. Number three, Muslim girls of affluent families studied at home if they received any education beyond learning to recite the Quran. Number four, the girl to higher classes used to continue their studies at home. Number five, though there was Parda system during the Muslim period, yet Islam did not oppose the education of women. Now coming to the discipline. In education institutions as well as the members, that is teachers and students, were disciplined. In case the students did not abide by the rules and the policies, then they were punished. Apart from getting involved in all the tasks and activities that were related to learning, discipline was considered to be of utmost significance. For misconduct, breach of discipline, neglecting study, and immoral act, students were publicly caned, whipped, or beaten with fists. Closing ceremony. At the completion of the studies, no examination was conducted. The students were leaving the institutions when the teacher considered them proficient in any branch of learning. Successful completion of the study under a distinguished teacher was considered enough qualification of a student. At the end of academic career, there was provision of awarding certificates and medals. Now, merits and limitations of the system of education. Merits. Emphasis on education. Education is considered as attainment, happiness in the life, and obtaining knowledge of God. Number two, personal contact like immense and love and affection between the teacher and taught. Number three, individual attention of student to their optimum development and progress. Number four, students were prepared for vocational pursuits. Number five, the curriculum was rich with astronomy, agriculture, commerce, handicrafts, and medicines. Number six, free education for students. Number seven, development of historical literature. The biographies of rulers which throw a lot of light on everyday life, including education. Limitations. What are the limitations of medieval education system? Mother tongue not the medium of instruction. Next point, Persian and Arabic were the medium of instruction. Next point, much emphasis on religious scriptures. Next point, very little check on standards of education, no external evaluation. Next point, less facilities for higher education. Madrasah were located in the cities, so poor people failed to attain it. Next point, students are expected to read first, then he was taught to write. This leads to defective method of teaching, writing and reading. Next point, neglect of women education. Only royal ladies are able to receive education, but in general it is neglected. Next point, less emphasis on comprehension and understanding. Now coming to the relevancy of the system of education in present context. The students were taught about traditions, customs, rituals and religion. In the modern education, the students are taught about science, technology, language skills and mathematics. Now let us see a detailed comparative study of medieval education with Buddhistic and Vedic system of education. Now first let us see education system. In Vedic education period, education of Vedas, whereas in Buddhist education period, education of three Pitikas. In Muslim education period, education of Quran. Second point, center of education. In Vedic education system, it is Gurukulas, whereas in Buddhist education system, it is Math and Vihar. In Muslim education period, it is Maktabs and Madrasahs. Third point, age of admission. In Vedic period, different age for different castes. Brahmins 8 years, Kshatriyas 10 years, Vaishyas 12 years. Whereas in Buddhist education system, it is age of admission was 6 years. Whereas in medieval period, it is age of admission was 4 years, 4 months, 4 days. Next point, medium of education. Vedic period, it is Sanskrit. Buddhist period, it is Pali and Prakrit. Muslim period, it is Persian and Arabic. Next point, aims of education. Vedic system, it is all-round development. Whereas in Buddhist education system, it is character formation. Whereas in the Muslim education system, it is propagation of knowledge. Next point, initiation ceremony. In Vedic education system, it is Upanayana Sanskar. Whereas in Buddhist education system, it is Pabja Sanskar. Or else Pabja Sanskar. It is how you will pronounce it, that depends on you. In the Muslim education period, it is Bismillah. Now coming to the curriculum. Philosophy in a Vedic education system, it is curriculum is philosophy, grammar, astrology and logics. Whereas in Buddhist education system, the curriculum was primary education, knowledge of alphabets through Siddharth higher education. Siddharth, okay, higher education system, grammar, astrology, philosophy. Monk education, Buddhist literature and Tripitakas. Whereas in Muslim education system, primary education, Quran, higher education, history, law and physics. Now coming to the next point, teacher and pupil relationship. In Vedic education system, the relationship was cordial. In Buddhist also, it is cordial relationship. Whereas in Muslim education system, it is sincerity and purity. Next point, methods of teaching. Basic education system, rote method, manan, nididhyasan. Whereas in Buddhist education system, lecture and demonstration method. That is practice. In Muslim education system, it is oral method, self-study. Now coming to the levels of education. Primary, higher and general education. Whereas in Buddhist education system, primary education, higher education, bhikshu education. Whereas in Muslim education period, it is primary education and higher education. So next point, teachers. In Vedic education system, teachers are called as guru. Brahmins were the teachers. In Buddhist education system, upadhyaya, monks are the teachers. Whereas in Muslim education period, ustad and maulvis are the teachers. Next point, women education. In Vedic education system, women are not allowed for higher education. It means no provision for higher education. Buddhist education period, separate provision for education. Whereas in Muslim education period, education was limited to royal ladies. This is what comparative chart which tells us medieval education with Buddhist and Vedic education system. So thank you. Wear the mask, maintain the social distance, and don't forget to subscribe. And once again, I tell you that if I'm wrong in pronunciation of any technical terms, please excuse me. And don't forget to subscribe. Thank you and all.